Welcome back. My name is Dan. Damn it! What? I confuse myself also. All right, game. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to the channel. You guys are watching GLive Game Night, and in this episode, we'll be talking about digital and physical card games. In the advent of the pandemic, I'm sure karamihan sa inyo stuck lang sa bahay, just like everyone else. And that may have led you guys to just explore the possibilities of digital card games, even if you had some hesitations. Let this episode be a little bit of an insight and a discussion on that conundrum. Kung kunyari, nasa fence kayo. And for the people who are more on the digital side, this might be a little bit of a pull for you to go like, okay naman pala itong physical, right? Okay naman pala yung analog. But again, stay safe, stay healthy. Isolation where it's necessary. My name is Leo, your host for GLive Game Night. As always, we're joined by Hans, Chief Meeple.
Hello.
And as well, we're joined by Raf, good friend of ours, few years now. And he's one of friends I've met through another card game you may have heard of, Android Netrunner. Alright, Raf, kumusta?
Yeah, Android Netrunner was really great, but community fell apart, game fell apart.
Something we can talk about later on. It happens. All right. So that being said, I think we'll start with how we got into card gaming first. No, it's a broad genre. Again, when you say card games, people might think of different things, right? Cabo is technically a card game. Ultimate Werewolf is technically a card game kasi may cards siya. But the card games we're talking about are the specific kind. No. These are the card games that you might consider as the TCG, CCG, or LCG, right? They're the card games that are made mostly for 2 players or games that are meant to be competitive in nature. So we'll start with that kind of baseline and move on to how we got into it. Hans, come muna, how did you get into these card games?
Well, I think every child born in the 80s and the 90s would somehow get across Pokemon. Medyo imposible ma-miss out yan. It's either Pokemon, I think the big 2 are Pokemon and Magic the Gathering.
Yes, some kids are so unfortunate to get both.
Yeah.
Some kids' parents.
I got into Pokemon. I was more into the anime back then. And I remember during school may dala-dala kaming decks and then we would play in recess, no. It was very intuitive kasi HP, attack, and then you need energy to attack, basically, ganon. Plus of course to the eyes of my parents back then, it didn't look daunting compared to, for example, Magic the Gathering,
right?
Diba? Medyo mas appealing siya to families, kumbaga. So that's basically how I got into competitive card game. I wasn't really competing in tournaments back then. I was just playing with friends. And then at the same time, I was playing more with my younger brothers noong time na yun. So the problem that I ran into with competitive card games was after the starter set and a few boosters, so parang like that's like a beginner bundle in today's digital card game, diba? Yeah. My parents cut us off. so kailangan yung mga gusto namin, the nice to have, the wants that we had to save up on our own through allowances, through good grades. Parang that was the carrot to our stick, kumbaga.
It's also Pokemon was the gateway, and it started with a freebie na parang, okay anak, we'll let you start into this, but later on if you wanted like the more expensive stuff, dapat pinag-ipunan.
Yeah, my parents found it a way to actually teach us about saving money, where to budget money, na hindi namin na-feel na tinitipid kami.
Yeah.
Parang ganon.
You're working for it, you're earning it.
You're working for it, you're earning it. And I think it laid a good foundation. In fact, with my children, ganon din yung plan ko. That if they like something, I'll help them get started into it. But then, after that, everything else that you want, you have to work on your own. Kumbaga, parang ganun yung mindset ko.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Already some moral lessons in card games. Ikaw, Raf, how did you get into card games?
Yeah, basically same story. Pokemon was actually my entry point, but the difference is, unlike Hans, I think he bought original Pokemon card games.
Oh, okay. I see.
There was a market for counterfeit Pokemon card games in our province because we're pretty far away.
Mhm.
So basically, yung competitive scene is non-existent, and then a magic shop opened up
Right.
in our town. So I basically switched to Magic kasi nandun yung scene,
Mhm.
but then again, nawala yung scene. So,
Right. Okay.
but later in college, nung college na, doon na ako get into like actual competitive Magic.
Right.
Not-
Because you're a grown up and you kind of understand
Yeah.
how things work.
Yeah, because no, especially nung elementary ako. Elementary ako nag-start ng Pokemon and ng Magic.
Mhm.
But thing about switching card games is I thought they worked the same. So
All right. Well, you're a kid. You're a kid, right? Like,
yeah, but I totally understood Pokemon card
Yeah.
game because there was a digital adaptation, a digital adaptation of that,
Mhm.
like on the Game Boy
Yes.
Color.
Oh, I love that
Yeah,
game. Right.
Game Boy
Yeah.
Color.
Wow. Already, we're not even talking about like digital yet, pero meron technically digital. You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I learned Pokemon card game through that. But nung nag-switch ako sa Magic, I thought energy or lands
Lands
were
attached to
yeah,
Pokemon.
lands. Yeah, I
Yeah,
catch.
that.
Yes.
So they didn't really attach to creatures, but I thought when you use them, they disappear.
Right. Okay.
So parang we
The
had
energy removal.
All right.
so later in life, tsaka ako na lang nalaman how it actually worked.
Okay.
And-
Interesting.
Yeah, so basically Magic was the one that actually thrust me into the whole scene.
Right,
Pero
okay.
yung starting point ko was Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon was more like especially on the Game Boy, right? That was like, oh, so
Yeah.
this is card games. I have the physical thing. They're not necessarily original, or I can play with people, pero it was the game, the card, the Game Boy Color game that kind of
Yeah.
started you on it. And then when Magic came around and you figured the rules out, parang, oh, ito legit, ito na card games.
Yeah.
Alright, interesting. So guys, already there's some foreshadowing in this short discussion, no? You can already see that community is a big deal, and clarity on rules, or at least someone to guide you on the rules, is something that's important in a card game. But yeah, as for me, here's what's interesting. It's kind of a mix of both of your stories. Kasi kay Raf, it's a lack of community and again, lack of access to cards. And it was the same thing for me. I remember when there were Pokemon, the card game commercials on TV. Alright? On TV. Wala pang internet nun. And I lived in like the mountains of Antipolo. And I kept bugging my parents, let's go to the mall. Let's go to the city. Because I want to play Pokemon. I wanted you to buy me the Pokemon card game. And they were just saying, no, we're not driving up there an hour, 2 hours just for you to get cards. So I had to wait until I was maybe in grade school or parang later grade school, high school, for me to actually get a taste of card games. And it wasn't even Pokemon anymore. Parang naalala ko, when I got to my new school, because we kind of moved, when I got to my new school, wala na yung Pokemon. Parang hindi na siya pauso. Ang pauso na nun is Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? So there's
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, there you go. There's the three. There's a third game in the big three. So I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I kind of started with counterfeit cards as well. But at that point, parang ang hirap eh. I think some of our viewers and listeners would understand when I say ang hirap, because there was a time in the early age of Yu-Gi-Oh! The early history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now you can't tell if it's fake or not. Kasi they felt the same. They had the same Konami sticker, and when you look at them, like, this is legit. Lalo na pag sleeve mo. So I kind of got into that, and then I started investing in the real stuff, again with the help of my parents, allowance, gifts, parang ganon. Maybe for 2 or 3 years straight na birthday, I just want Yu-Gi-Oh! So that happened. And then eventually in high school, yan, Magic na. So I think as a grown-up, or more of an adult, I understand the rules and what the cards mean. Parang it felt a little more at home. So yeah, I guess all three of us started with analog card games, which makes the heyday, or which makes the ease of access for digital card games all the more important and significant. And that's what blows my mind. Sa totoo lang, with the release of in the 90s. Tama ba, Raf? That was the 90s, right? When the Game Boy Color game came out.
Game Boy Color.
Yeah, for the Pokemon trading card game. And ano ba yun? Early renditions of Magic Online. Although I really hate the UI until today.
I haven't actually played Magic Online, but there was a thing back
yeah,
there with Magic Workstation.
There you go. That too.
Yeah.
Oh, basta basically it's been around, but really what the let's say the real breakout was Hearthstone 2014. I personally started with Hearthstone, so I want to know now where you guys had your first taste of digital card gaming. Let's start with you, Raf.
Yeah, actually, same thing. I also started Hearthstone. Played a lot of it actually kasi nag-transition ako from WoW TCG. So, I felt like it was a nice transition, but as something na I think will come up, I've also had like back and forth pagdating sa Hearthstone. I mean, Hearthstone was my main game,
Yes.
pero there was like Shadowverse, there was like Eternal.
Oh, Shadowverse.
Yes, you mentioned these two very strong games, and I think it's worth noting that they also do unique things themselves, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that only digital card games can do. We'll get into that in just a bit. But how about you, Hans? What was your first foray? What was your first taste of digital card gaming?
So I got into Hearthstone really quick. I checked it out. In fact, I love the system to the point that I bought the starter bundle. But after that, I didn't last because the experience went downhill from there. I was stuck with like the same basic decks always, and progressing was a bit harder. So I stopped from there, but the one that I found a home in is actually called Legends of Frontera.
Yep.
Yep. So that's the one that I'm really playing into to the point that I did spend already on it. I bought the skin. Cannot believe I bought the skin. And then I bought a board. And that's the only game that I have not even bought a single card or a single pack. So because everything else was done through other means, no, in terms of increasing your collection. So I'm into it right now. I read online in terms of strategies. I watch YouTube videos on how to get better. So that's my go-to card game experience as of the moment. And it's a pretty great community.
Yeah. Again, it uses such a strong IP, and I understand now why it's unique on its own and why it's so strong. I expect it to go longer. I mean, to be a real competitor here to Hearthstone. Hearthstone's been around for half a decade now, even more. Not expecting it to go down. Even if, yun nga, mahirap mag-progress minsan and you somehow feel like the game is against you. But that's another issue that we'll talk about later on. But let's talk about the good side first. All right? Let's look at the pros here first. What are some things that a digital card game can do and do very well na hindi kaya talaga ng analog card games? All right? I'll start now. And I think this builds off of what Raf mentioned earlier. Communities die out, right? And sadly, rip all of the communities that personally we have worked with, invested their time in, and just grew to love, just could not survive. Kasi nga, it's such a pivotal part of the culture. And I'm talking about Netrunner, the Game of Thrones, Ashes, L5R. Again, community is such a big part of a card game, and the physical space is so necessary for this, and like so much time investment na 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, a year, if you can't consistently keep on building that, it's just gonna crumble. So the digital space is so awesome kasi you have the internet, right? You have these social systems built in. Add kita, tas laro tayo. Simple. Within 2 seconds, no, not 2 seconds. Within a minute, Hans and I can go off and play Legends of Frontera. Within a minute, I can play Hearthstone with Raf. And it's that simple. It's that quick. So I think that's one of the strengths that a digital card game has. Raf, ikaw, what are some thoughts?
Well, sa akin, I feel like in most games, they give you the feeling that free to play is an option. I mean, technically, Legends of Frontera is the only one that can do that. Pero at least they
technically, right?
Technically, yeah. But like in Hearthstone, if you focus on just one single archetype, you can do it. I mean, you can turn other cards into dust. Diba? Pero,
Wait. At least you can do that in Hearthstone. You can do it in real life. You can't take like an
Sabagay,
L5R
yeah.
card, turn it into dust, and go to like some dude. Can I get something else for this?
yeah, at least. So FTP isn't always an option for getting
F2P, right. Economically speaking, in this time and space and, you know, just the climate, the zeitgeist, I use that word, the zeitgeist of this world, parang ang ganda na may free-to-play, right?
Yeah, so,
Uh,
saying.
yeah, I think it's a barrier to entry is just really way lower. Before, naalala ko yung first Pokemon starter deck ko cost about 300 pesos in grade school, if I remember right, the two-player starter set.
Parang 500 naman, Hans.
Si Machamp.
500 yun.
500 ba yun?
Yeah.
Crap.
160
Oo,
kasi.
tapos
160 kasi ang 160 ang booster pack, 'di ba? So 500 ang starter deck.
Booster pack, oh yun.
Yeah.
Grabe, tapos ang makukuha mo lang si Machamp.
Yeah. Isang Machamp.
So, isang Machamp, yeah. So, yeah, like the barrier to entry is just really way lower with digital card games. Yeah. So, sorry, I just needed to build on what Raf said kasi
Yeah.
for me, that's very important kasi the access for either free to play, to try it out, and then if you don't like it, there no harm, no foul.
That's super important. I think that's super important because nangyari na rin sa kanya, nasunog ako ng isang card game or ng isang laro na hindi ko naman pala talaga gusto. Like you buy the starter. So let's take it in both senses, right? You have a TCG. You buy a starter and maybe like 6 booster packs. Tapos ayaw mo naman pala yung laro. Like what happens to you? You burn 3,000 pesos and you're done, right?
Pesos.
But
Yeah.
and then you take it from the LCG standpoint, you buy 2 starters and you buy 3 or 4 expansions. Again, you burn 3,000, 5,000 pesos, and then you don't like the game after all. But again, that's just one thing, right? Free to play. Ikaw, Hans, anything else you find that the digital card game does better?
For me, just the ability to do erratas and balance changes
Right.
on a whim. Because I've experienced that with Runeterra. Actually, I'm gonna break from Runeterra now because of that particular matter. Where you know, with any card game kasi, or with any community or any product, you need some spice into it. Like you don't ever want to get it stale, diba? So most of the time, if a certain meta or if a certain archetype is dominating, you need to be able to do balance changes so that, you know, there's some sort of excitement for people to get back into it. And the good thing with all these things, diba, is if it doesn't work, tweak it. And people can accept tweaking, but people cannot accept if you bought like $100 card or 1,000 peso card, biglang the next day it goes down in terms of value just because, you know, it's banned from tournament play anymore. Parang ganyan. I think that is a big that is actually one of the reasons why I went board games instead, in terms of the analog experience.
Yeah, because board games, like, you're right, it's not that competitive to the point where the developers, the publishers, and the designers have to keep tabs on it. Asterisk for some games, like let's say X-Wing, but they built that into their system. X-Wing 2.0, wherein the cards are blank, like walang numbers because the numbers are in the app. But then again, there's two sides of the coin here for your favorite part, Hans, because one is, yes, you can instead errata things to fix them, to tweak them. The other is it makes the rules interaction so much easier. Right? It makes the game all the more accessible. Kasi if you get into a game that's like Yu-Gi-Oh, wherein a card actually says something else than what's on the physical card, tas hindi mo alam, and then you're playing with other people and you're like, ay, ganun pala yun. Oops, so I guess my card is not as good as I thought. If it's a digital card game, it's always built in. You're always like, ay, nagbago pala to. Oh well, I'll play it. Right? So, shoutouts to you, Brom. I'm sorry, like, you went back and forth. But again, that's one of the strengths here of a digital card game. How about you guys? Do you have any thoughts on this? What are your favorite things about digital card games? The good stuff that they do coming in from analog gaming, or even just as a digital card game player, if you're watching right now, put your comments down below. Let's hear from some friends. No, we asked the same question in our GLive Game Night community Facebook page. Do join. We'll be putting the link right here on screen. We have here Raison J Maramot says, been a fan of digital card games before I got into the tabletop hobby. See that? That's conversion. I call that an effective strategy. He played Hearthstone, Legend of Runeterra, Smite Tactics, Elder Scrolls, Gwent, and dozens more of different CCGs and TCGs on mobile. Sucker for card games. So that's what's cool, no? I'm not sure what the actual numbers are, but to get a physical card game off the ground, parang ang daming steps. No, Hans, you have to go through publishing, you have to go through printing, distribution, design. Pero for digital card games, it's kind of half, right? Parang kalahati lang yon. You have a digital platform, you have design, and you have the programming. Everything else is like a sidestep, but yeah, parang mas madali. So I understand now how it also empowers designers.
Well, at the same time, in terms of design mechanics, right? Like, one of the things that Legends of Runeterra, I think, improved on, that physical card games cannot copy is cards level up during matches if you fulfill certain conditions. Like, for example, if you did 10 damage, or if you healed 5, and then it levels up, and then your deck becomes stronger. Sometimes that's your win condition. I think that's one thing that digital card games have innate in terms of innate advantages versus physical card games. Because I was looking at it, because in the Runeterra community, someone printed, because they love the game so much, someone printed it physically.
This happened during
diba?
beta test. No, like, now because they love it, pero dati nangyari na yon. Like, para talaga maaral nila yung game. Like, when the game was not released yet and they know the rules and the cards, they're like, sige, tara, print natin. That was ridiculous. You're right, I remember.
And then when you level up a card, so may sideboard ka, and then you swap it out, parang so it's a bit clunky in a way in that aspect, and that's what I like about digital card games over the physical aspect in terms of ease of gameplay. And then design wise, in terms of mechanics, you have a lot more freedom on it.
Because I think card memory, remembering what happened or remembering what stats are put onto this thing, like, that's something you can't do physically, except with dice, syempre, on the board. But let's say in your deck or previous turns, no, it's so hard to log. That's another thing that came up.
Buti you thought of that. With Runeterra, you can actually scroll through the history of the match.
Yes, all the way to turn one. All the way to turn one. Yes.
So, the reason for that is, so I never really looked at that part until I started watching matches in terms of how it unfolds. And then I was watching Queen's Gambit with all the chess, which is technically a strategy game, diba? And there were no digital aspects back then. So to record history, each player would be recording their moves on a separate piece of paper. And then they would be publishing like a battle report in the news or in the magazines before. So the underlying concepts of doing these features was already present all the way from chess era. It's just that now that people are seeing it because of the ease of translating information right onto the player or to the community behind it.
Yep, that happens. So that's another good thing from digital card games. But now let's move on to the bad. No, what are things that you just don't get from digital card games that still analog provides? And with that, I'll start na muna, no. Based on the current situation, I think for the successful and for the established digital card games now, one of the things that I don't get to feel, I'm not sure if it's a lack of the systems that are out there or the designers, like, given a digital platform nga ito, they just avoid that entirely, whether on purpose or not. There seems to be a lack of engine building feel. Like, I don't know if it's a tactile thing na parang, okay, I'll do this, I'll put this onto this, and then I'll attack you. that feels like I'm building an engine in real life. But I do that in a card game. Okay, I attach this to this, and then you're dead. It just feels like it's lacking an oomph, or it really is lacking in engine depth. That's just one of the things I lack, because I feel like sometimes Magic can be a Euro. Ano ba ibang card games? Netrunner feels like a Euro sometimes, even as the runner. The runner is the aggressive player, and you're the one who's also still kind of building an engine. Game of Thrones, you can play totally defensive and it'll feel like a Euro game na parang, okay, I'll do this, this, and this. Okay, try to attack me. But in Hearthstone and Legends of Runeterra, specifically these two games, they lack that kind of engine. Or that kind of feel. That makes me feel big brain.
Yeah, because mana is given to you freely.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's
+1 per round, no?
Yeah. Huh, I don't know. Rafika, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, Eternal has a mana system, but even that felt like kulang din siya.
I think, pagdating to sa engine thing, I think Gwent is the closest.
But, yes, I agree. Sometimes there is some engine building in Gwent, but everything is so temporary in Gwent.
Sabagay, yeah. Especially after the overhaul of the system, like before,
yes,
there was
from the older system to now,
Yeah.
it's all the more temporary. I'm like,
kaya parang Gwent was the actual closest pagdating to sa feeling ngayon, but it actually lacked the same thing that you said, na yung oomph, which I think is also present in other digital like applications ng board games.
Right. So maybe it's tactile also. It's partly tactile, partly a design direction. So yeah, that's something that I think analog card games still do better. How about you, Raf? What's something that's missing from these digital renditions?
Yeah, I guess that's the same thing. Like, tactility is actually the biggest part for me na missing. Especially with how yung habits mo of like shuffling your cards while they're in your hand, while also thinking na parang they also have this bluffing aspect na parang kita mo kasi yung opponent mo.
You're right. In the physical space, you're like, yeah.
Na parang you're missing out on the part, the psychological part, especially during the Netrunner days na medyo ito yung pinaka big brained na CC na card game ng physical card games.
Yes.
I think
parang it's still the smartest card game I know.
Yeah, definitely. Sa akin yan. Sa opinion ko din. But
walang bias.
Yeah. Hindi, pagdating talaga doon sa, especially during side games.
Yes.
Yung feeling of revealing tokens from your hand.
Right.
Na parang close. Na parang may certain level of excitement there. Unlike na pagdating doon sa what is this spell that is resolving in the middle of the board. Pagdating sa Legends of Runeterra. There's less excitement pagdating dun eh. Unlike
like no matter how nice the graphics are, right? No matter how beautiful it looks on your screen, it's still very different.
Yung impact lang talaga wala. It lacks the impact of the tactile physical space.
It lacks the you need the top card to win.
Yeah.
Oh my
and then
God.
the heart of the card.
yes.
Yung tas bigla kang sisigaw na Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, you know what? The second that a game does that, wala pa actually. They should integrate that into certain card games. Like, alright, this is free for any developer out there, publisher. Like, if the player is like below a certain threshold of their health, every single card they draw shines. Like whether or not it's good or bad, do that and it'll add like an entire level of cool. But anyways, that's Hans' idea. Siya nagsabi na parang may heart of the cards moment. But anything else?
Given that it's card games, diba? If there's a potential for lethal, then dapat the top of the deck would shine para ganun, gumagano yung para sa kalaban mo.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually implementable or executable given that,
That's what I'm saying.
all of the data is in the,
Wait, if anything, I think there is a game that does that, and it's Card Fight Vanguard Zero. It's a mobile iteration of Card Fight Vanguard. Pero iba pa rin eh. Like, it only does it for the trigger turns. Like, when you're attacking, like, pero iba pa rin eh. Dapat nag-shine siya. And dapat when you're about to die, like, Yes! I don't know. I'm just guessing. But I guess that's what shooed me away from that game. Cardfight Vanguard, the basic game, the original physical game, I played in 2013. And I played religiously for like a few years. I love that game so much. Pero nung lumabas yung mobile version, I couldn't play it for more than a week. So iba rin kasi. I think that's what was missing from it. The tactile feel of those cards. But yeah, Hans, is there anything else on your end that you like wish or feel that digital games could do better? Or that analog games still do better?
So this is minor. I'm sure everyone thinks the face-to-face interaction is missing. Ganon. The mind reading or the face reading, diba? That's one. But for me, actually, the lack of the option to replay certain games. So you can you can replay, meaning rewatch the whole thing. But before I would remember now with friends, we would know at certain points in the match when the swing happened. And if you've played any card games before, you would get that feeling that this was the pivotal moment when something changed.
Right. So what if I did this? What if balik tayo, reset the board and then do this, right?
Yeah, so we would most of the time like finish some of the matches and then mapag-uusapan na what if i-reset natin, what if I did this instead,
right.
And usually I remember if you were kasi nagkakaroon ng mga tournaments sa schools, so you and your friends parang you would try to train each other and then it's not perfect, diba? But you can actually put things back to the way they were at a certain round, and if you have a training buddy, alam mong at this point yon, and then parang sasabihin mo pala na I think this is the pivotal moment, record lang natin and then balikan natin, but this is what I'm gonna do, parang ganyan. And then you try to go back on it. I think that's one thing that's missing. I know a lot of people that sometimes when you watch streams, they get streamers to coach them. And then what they do is they just try to replay on what happened.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with that is it's all theoretical.
Yeah, you can watch what happened, but you can't interact with it. Nangyari na siya, sasabihan ka lang.
Nangyari na.
Pero hindi mo gagawin.
Sasabihin niya lang na maybe you should have played this card, but at that point you don't know what's gonna happen next na.
Because you can't play it out.
It's more theoretical.
Yeah.
You can't play it out diba?
Right.
Kasi you can say now, we should have went this way and I think ganito gagawin ng opponent ko. But your opponent isn't there to actually respond, diba, to what you did. So it's minor, but I think a lot of players who have played competitive card games before would understand that feeling. Na you wish you could take it back and then see if we did another way, anong lalabas.
To get better, to learn from it.
To get better, diba? I think that's one of the things that I'm missing in digital card games.
I think that brings us now to our last part of this discussion is stuff that we wish for the system. Analog board games have been around for thousands of years. I'm looking at you, Go. All right, Go is still alive. Oddly enough, the other night I was watching a documentary on Go, and they take it very seriously in some parts of the world. Meron pa ring world championships ng Go. All right? So, my hopes for the digital platform are so high because if a game like Go can survive, what more are these games that have like so many people working on it with thousands of dollars pouring into the systems. Anyways, that's one. I think, Hans, you already started the discussion without even knowing it. I think one good thing that digital card games can do is integrate a system wherein you can manipulate the pieces. Wherein you can say, okay, this is my deck. I can choose what's out, and then I can choose what's in my hand. I can set the damage, and then we can go from there again. Parang total training mode. Oh no, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. There is no such thing. Hearthstone's never done it. Legends of Runeterra's never done it. Maybe
and it's
because
something that easily implementable, you think?
Yes, but I'm just thinking as well, ang dami mong potentially factors na kailangang isipin. Kasi what if, at that point of the game, na-buff na yung tatlong card sa deck mo, and na-discard na di ba parang, there's so many other digital elements. Yes, but, again, if it's, I guess that's full developer mode. I'm not sure the developers would like to give that out for free, or if it's even safe to do. But yeah, if you can do it in physical form, why not digital? That's one thing. I don't know, Raf, ikaw, what are some wish lists? What are some things on your wish list for the digital card game?
I mean, I guess a wish list lang in general pagdating dyan is that more digital board or digital card games actually go the same way that Legends of Runeterra is progressing. Because most of these games are actually good, but like pouring money into them usually costs more than buying a single AAA game.
So the
parang-
the economic model, gayahin.
Yeah,
All right.
not necessarily gayahin, but just make it more of a thing na kaya mong laruin rather than kaya mong gastusan. Because
So
as it
yes.
stands right now,
Okay.
parang gastos na lang siya. So, especially especially other card games.
Yeah.
I think in a nutshell, more play to win rather than pay to win. But I think that's big. Like in Runeterra, the reason why I haven't bought a single card is because whenever you play, you get cards.
Yeah.
And there's an option pa nga for singles. But
Yes.
and then because I like the game so much, I paid for cosmetics and skins because for me that was my only way of showing support to the game.
Yeah.
Diba? So I think it was more that yun yung play to win rather than pay to win.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Riot really hit the nail in the head in that sense. Now they're starting a trend wherein you don't really need to tax your players to be able to play your game. Because I'm the same way, Hans. I actually take breaks from Legends of Runeterra and I just do the bare minimum so that I still get a champion every week. And I have a complete set, like legit, all the champions. And I don't even play competitively anymore. So ganun kalupit yung Legends of Runeterra model. So definitely, Raf, solid. I do hope more future card games do break out now, just because Hearthstone and LOR are already super established. But yeah, Hans, take us home. What's one more thing? What's a good feature that you think digital card games can still implement?
To be honest, I've always felt na they would try to integrate the analog aspect. Meaning, you've watched Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid, and you know how technically the cards are digital in a way. Pag nilagay mo dun sa what do they call it? Yung the Seto Kaiba
Is this
mechanism.
the arena, like the big arena, tas lalabas siya, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then something like na medyo may VR or may 3D na lumalabas or something like that. Because I don't know. I still miss being able. I remembered hosting an event doon for Hearthstone in one of our places, and then people were playing, but when they were playing each other, they weren't really looking at each other.
They were just glued to their screens.
So I wish like there was a way for digital card games to take the cue from analog, where they would force interaction with people face to face, especially in tournaments. No, I was watching several card game adaptations in tournaments. Na they would be glued to their screens instead of being able to look at the other person. And that for me is big. Whether it's Clash Royale, whether it's Hearthstone, whether it's Runeterra, the mind reading and the yun wala eh. So that's a feature. I don't know if that's a feature or something.
If it's possible, even.
If it's possible, yeah.
It's such a broad design space, and even I can't answer it, but I think it's also very essential. It's necessary for it to survive or to even figure out what it can do better. So, I don't know. We want to hear from you guys as well. What are some aspects or features you wish digital card games could build upon? Put them in the comments and we'll talk about it. All right, let's start a discussion. But with that being said, I think we'll wrap this up. Again, there's so much more digital card games can do, and even then I think there's also so much physical analog card games can do, and we can only really imagine what they can do together. I think we'll close up on that now. Imagine if there was like a game out there that really molded these two formats together and executed on it so well. The future is bright. All right. So with that being said, thank you so much on behalf of Raf, and Hans, Chief Meatball. My name is Leo, your host for GLive Game Night. Do click subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you enjoyed this discussion and you want to hear more, let us know what other topics you want us to cover. That being said, you guys have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.